welcome to Motors for the Masses, and today we're going to be answering a question: which one is the better ride, the BMW R9T Racer or the Triumph Thruxton 900? So first of all, here are the specs. Take a look and then we'll go for a ride. So you find me at the side of the road, not because the bike is broken down at all, but because my GoPro has fouled up. That's 2 in 2 weeks. There was a bit of a mishap and now it's not recording. So I have 2 of the GoPro Hero 8s and I've got 2 of the microphone booster pack things that it slides into, and then put an external microphone on. Got both packs. Brilliant. So the last 20 minutes of riding, including me talking all about the bike and going down dual carriageways and country roads, etc., and how it feels. And I'm that annoyed, I'm not doing it again. So what I'm going to do is throw in a load of footage that I got with my Insta360, which is still working perfectly. Touch wood, find wood, big and little, that won't do. Ow, that's slippery, but that's still wood. And then I'm going to talk to my phone, because my phone is working. If you know any alternatives to GoPro, then please let me know in the comment section below what you use, because I'm annoyed with GoPro. I used to have issues with my GoPro 3. The issue with that is that it disappeared with my drone out to the sea about 15 years ago. No, about 10 years ago now. So there was that issue. My Hero 7 failed. That wouldn't read memory cards either. Hero 8, been fine. Now it won't read memory cards. And my other Hero 8, there was an incident where the back bracket broke and it fell off. But for now, let's get back, have a cup of tea, and I'll tell you all about how I feel about this bike. Bloody cameras. So first off, we have the Thruxton, and instantly the seating position is a bit odd, because it feels as though the seat is leaning backwards slightly. The handlebars, even though it's sort of I suppose you could call it a cafe racer, but it's not quite a cafe racer. The feet position indicate that it is a cafe racer, simply because your feet are pointing backwards, in comparison to a classic bike where it's sort of 90-degree angle on the knee. But the handlebars feel a bit too narrow. And I know they're pointing backwards in a cafe style, they just feel a bit too narrow and it feels odd. Don't get me wrong, it is nice to ride, it is quite comfortable, but it feels a little bit old and a bit agricultural. I know it's what, 2008 this bike, but it just feels as though it's a bit of an old bike. It's got a sort of a classic Triumph feel to it. So I suppose in that sense it does it really, really well, because it's got a classic Triumph feel, but it just more in the way that it feels old, not a classic bike, just an old bike. The more I ride it, the more comfortable it does get. It's very easy to ride, it doesn't feel very heavy, it's quite simple to get in and out of corners. I've got no problems in terms of steering it, manoeuvring it. The feet position, as I say, are a bit odd in comparison to the rest of the way you're sitting on the bike, but I'm not uncomfortable and I'm not disenjoying it. That should be a word, disenjoying. I'm not unenjoying it, disenjoying it, disliking it. There you go, we'll have that one. I quite like the clocks. They're nice and simple, no frills. You don't get a petrol light indicator. You don't even get a petrol light. So you need to keep an eye on your fuel to see if you are using it by sloshing the tank and undoing it. There's no key, so you just undo the cap quite nicely. Have a look inside, slosh it about a bit, and then you know how much fuel you got. Just like the good old days. So lights wise, all you get is headlights, indicators, and again, it's not left and right, you just get indicators to show the indicators are on, neutral lights and an oil light, and that's it really. So it's quite simplistic. I suppose technically you could lower these handlebars to make it more cafe-esque, but I don't know if that would make you enjoy the ride more. I mean, it'd make you lean over a bit more, but I don't know, just a bit of an odd feeling really. It's simple, don't get me wrong, it's very easy to ride, It's not difficult at all. It just feels a bit unusual, like it doesn't really know what it is, I suppose. Clutch is simple enough, gear change is nice and positive, brakes are pretty good. You know, it does everything that a bike should do, especially from someone like Triumph. You expect decent quality, and it is good quality. It's just not really something to get excited about. I suppose it's more of a plodder. This is why I haven't really taken it down the dual carriageway, because it's kind of irrelevant, really. It's not that style of bike. It's one you sort of plod through the countryside on. And don't get me wrong, to get where I am, I have taken it down the dual carriageway, and it does do 70, sits there, no problem at all, absolutely fine, which is what you would expect from a 900. But on that point, it is a 900cc engine, but it kind of rides like a 500cc, I would say. Like a modern 500cc engine. It pulls like that. It's got plenty of grunt, but it's just not quick. Again, it's not like a snail. It's certainly not like riding a 125, obviously, but it just feels like a ploddy style bike, something that you can just get on, hootle around the countryside on. I suppose the advantage of not having the lower bars is that you don't get pain in your palms or on your wrists. So it's got that advantage. It's just a bit of a doesn't quite know what it is bike, and it rides all right as a nice little weekend plodder, without having to worry about speeds or anything like that. So now onto the BMW R9T Racer, and this instantly feels very, very different. You are definitely leaning over the tank a lot more. The handlebars are in a cafe racer position, so you are putting pressure down on your wrists and your palms. At the moment, I'm not feeling any problems, but of course I've only been riding for a few minutes, so that will change, I'm sure. We'll see in a minute. Now, when I first sat revving this bike, I was a bit put off, I suppose, in the way that the engine moved in that boxer style. When you rev it, it sort of shoots to the right a bit. Something that sort of put me off the GS, really, when I was looking at my Triumph Explorer. But having said that, whilst you're riding, you really don't notice it. Now, I was told that you wouldn't notice it, and it's true. You really don't notice when you change gear. I mean, you've got more of a lumpy feel than you have on the Thruxton. So you've got that going on, of course, but it does sound quite nice. Now, as I've been riding the bike, I have noticed that I've started to enjoy it quite a bit more, to be honest. It is nowhere near as bad as I expected it to be, and I was expecting to hate it, but I don't. I don't love it, don't get me wrong, I don't love it, but I also don't hate it. The feeding position's nice, the gear change is nice and positive. The shaft drive is nice and smooth. It turns into corners really, really well. Although over the Thruxton, it's not as light as getting in and out of corners. You do have to lean it a bit more and be careful with the power. I suppose it's sort of like riding a V-twin. You've got quite a lot of weight low down and at the front there, and you just have to compensate for it. But it's not as bad because it's quite well spread, the engine. It actually corners better than I expected it to be honest. However, as I said, where I don't hate it, I also don't love it. I quite like it, but I certainly don't love it. So would I buy one? No, I wouldn't. Simply because as I've been riding a bit more, I am starting to get pain on my palms. Now these handlebar grips, being a cafe-esque style, it's just like a thin piece of rubber wrapped around the metal bars. There's certainly no cushioning to it. So in terms of that, it's not really that comfortable if you feel the pressure on your palms as easily as I do. But I have to say, when I took this down the dual carriageway, it really does fly quite well. Up to a certain rev point. Now, this does sort of top out, hits the red line at 8,500 RPM, but I would say it starts to hold back around 7,500 to 8,000 RPM. And then it sort of shuts off its power when you're hitting that rev range, or that rev limit. Other than that, it does power through quite nicely. In 4th, 5th and 6th is where you notice quite a bit of oomph as you pull away, and it really does get up to speed and etc. Really, really well. And It's very smooth and comfortable as well. That's what I like about it, is when you're doing speeds, it feels nice and secure, it feels nice and planted, it's not all over the place. What helps is that you are leaning forward in this style, so you're not really worried about being buffeted and blown around, because it does really hold you on the bike quite well. So in terms of that, it's not as powerful as I expected a 1200cc to be in the lower accelerations, but when you get into the sort of 50 mile an hour and beyond, it does pull really nicely in the higher gears, and that is quite impressive. I do like that. At first I was thinking it doesn't really feel like a 1200, but when you're just pulling away and riding normally, you've got sort of a 600 to 800cc feel, but you really notice that power and that grunt when you're out on the open road and you're giving it some grunt in 4th, 5th and 6th. When you're what I will say is that you really have to rev match, because if you come into a roundabout and you change down into what you would usually do in second, if you do it too early, it twitches and you feel the back end twitch a little bit if you're too high in the revs, because it really does bite. The engine bites you and just you're not really ready for it. So you have to slow down, bring the revs down before you change down into like 3rd and 2nd. Other than that, it's a great ride. Again, I wouldn't own one because it's not the style I like, but for anyone who's into cafe races, it's a fun bike, and it really does pull nicely when you give it some through the twisties, even down the dual carriageway. It'll keep up with everything else, unless of course the something else is like a Kawasaki H2 or something, but you know what I mean. It does keep up quite nicely. It pulls very nicely in the higher gears. In the lower gears, you've got to be careful how you keep the revs, otherwise that back end will bite. Other than that, it's not a bad bike. The more you ride it, as I say, it's not a long journey rider, because it's not that comfortable. The seat's comfortable, don't get me wrong, and the foot pegs and everything else is in the right position. It's just this leaning over and the pressure you're putting on your wrists. If you're used to riding a sports bike, it's not really an issue. So there we go, two very different bikes, even though they're the same sort of style bikes. So I'm now going to close out, but I'll do it in the car because this is just an unusual video, and I apologise it hasn't been the usual format, but you know, you work with what you've got. So I'll see you on the inside. So in summary, there's two very different bikes there, even though they're both sort of cafe-esque racers, should we say. I would say the Thruxton is more of someone who's given up on life. No, someone who just wants to enjoy a plod around the countryside, not too bothered about too much speed or acceleration or anything like that. It's just a nice, comfortable plodder, even though your feet are facing backwards. Whereas the BMW R9T Racer is more if you want to give it some and fly out through the twisties and then catch up with everybody else or keep up with everybody else on the dual carriageway. Again, both not my sort of style of bikes, but I can see their place. Now, if you're interested in both these bikes or in either of these bikes, have a look in the links in the description below. They are both for sale. The price of the BMW R9T is coming up here. And now the price of the Thruxton here. So there we go. You can see how much they are, and if you're interested, pop along and have a look, or pop down to Superbike Warehouse, who have lent me these bikes, and have a look there. I apologise about my cameras today. Very frustrating. I really thought, okay, the other one failed, but I've still got this one, and now that one's unbelievable. But there you go. We work with what we've got, which is why I'm talking to you on my Samsung. I hope it turns out all right. I'll find out when I get home. So there you go. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below. If you've got these bikes, let me know what you think of them. If you have anything else instead, let me know what you think of those. And I'm back very soon with another video. No idea what, but you'll find out then. So until next time, please ride and drive carefully, but have fun. Bye-bye.